And Happy New Year. Welcome back to We Love Ugly Data, the Deep Analysis podcast. This is episode 35, or the first episode of what is effectively series 4. We're actually in our sort of third year, I guess, of doing this podcast. We haven't reached the actual third anniversary yet. That's not till April, so I need to try and remember that when we get to that. But anyway, we're back. Hope you had a good break. Alan's here. Hi, Alan.
Hello.
Now, if you listen to this every month, then or watch this every month, or both, then first of all, bless you. But you'll also know that because at the end of last year, we did November and December were innovation awards and then predictions. That we haven't done a kind of a normal episode since October. So I'll be catching up a little bit on some of the things that we published in the intervening period in today's this month's episode, possibly into February as well. But before we get started, we have to deal with the housekeeping. Of course, part of the housekeeping is dealing with the format. And part of the format is telling you the format. So here's the format. It's 3 topics and 30 minutes, and we tried to keep to about 10 minutes a topic. We fail at this, but it's good to have an aim. And I say this as someone who sat directly in front of a large piece of exercise equipment. It's important to have the aim of being good, even if you don't always keep it up. So let's get straight into the first topic for this month: specificity and elephants. One of the triumphs of 2025 was I learned to say the word specificity. Obviously, not very well. In fact, for a while, I actually had it written phonetically on my board because it turns out, having written it down a lot, I couldn't actually say it. So, Alan, you published something for the start of 26. So I think it was the first blog post that came out on our blog this year. Links to all this stuff, of course, will be in the show notes. I will probably repeat that, but again, don't have to worry about keeping up with titles. It will be published. But yeah, Alan, you published this the first week of January, called "Navigating 2026: The Demand for Hyper-Specificity and the Persistent Paper Elephant." You've been storing that one up. I mean, I know verbosity is something we're renowned for, but that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's very long-winded, but it's the thing, and I've been doing this, far as I remember anyway, since the first year I was an analyst. I don't know, but I can't remember a time when I didn't. At the end of every year, I sit down and I take stock. I mean, it takes me about an hour. It's not like I spend a week doing this.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a glance through what we've done this past year. I write down. I actually do. I write down with a pen and pencil, or whatever. I write down. Okay, so what did we achieve this year as a business? But more importantly, because the business bit sort of takes care of itself. More importantly, what did we learn this year? You know, because as an analyst, I think there's this perception still that we look into crystal balls, and we don't.
Mm-hmm.
We don't. We just happen to have early insight into what's coming down the track. And if we look at moving into 2026, well, what do? You look at what was starting to come down the track in 2025, right?
Indeed.
2 things really jumped out for me, and in the sense that, yes, specificity, not a word many people use. We've been using it a lot. It seems to come up in a lot. But it's a really good one. And I mean, if we can summarize it very, very quickly, well, let's give an example, right? The enterprise content management world, not a happy place to be, really. It hasn't been for a long time. But what did they do back in the day, for anybody who remembers this far back? You know, it's not just enterprise content management. You could say the same for CRM. Oh, everybody's getting a document management system. Oh, everybody's buying a CRM system. We should buy one too. There was a market for just these generic horizontal products.
Mm-hmm.
All my competitors have one. I need one too.
Mm-hmm.
ERP being the massive one, right? Oh, everybody's moving to ERP. Oh, we'll have to have an ERP. Yeah, that world's gone, man. That's not there anymore. People want specific answers to specific problems, because the world has moved on. They've all got an ERP, they've all got a CRM, they've all got a document management system, they've got everything they need, if that makes sense. So now what are they looking for? They're looking for fixes to actual bottlenecks, problems, Our industry talks a lot about the need for greater efficiency and whatever. Yeah, at that point. The real world is, I've got a real problem in this department. and can it be fixed? And that means that, anyway, to translate this very quickly down, it means if you're an enterprise software vendor, if you sell anything that vaguely falls into the world of business application, you're going to now have to be very specific.
So by specific here, let's just, so basically there's two lessons in this post. And the first one we're talking about now is what you've titled the unrelenting march to hyper-specificity. Now, we talked about specificity last year specifically around AI, which was in order to get this stuff into enterprises and being productive, it needs to have a specific purpose that is understood, the process is understandable, the outcomes are measurable, otherwise it's going to be very difficult to raise the budget to do it. So keep that in mind, because neither of those themes are new, right? What they have done is perhaps draw a focus on the broader technology market and go, have we again let it drift? Have we let it drift into technology buying and technology silos rather than actual specific demonstrably useful outcomes?
Yeah, so this exactly. So the two things there. One, that seemed to be what was happening. Oh, we need AI.
Yeah.
Generic, general purpose AI. Yeah, well, as we know, that didn't actually happen. People built it. Enterprises didn't really buy it. Now, you could argue they did because they got bundled Copilot or whatever, but they didn't really buy into it. And so hyper-specificity is really about business application software. Now, yes, 99% of that, or whatever the real number is, probably utilizes AI in some way. So we can call them AI applications if we want. But the point is, if you were going to, so for example, we're doing a lot on medical billing at the moment, right? There's a lot in the medical billing world. Let's just take one example in there. The reduction of fraud in Medicare. Okay.
Sure.
How much fraud is there? I mean, that's debatable. Most of it's probably errors rather than fraud, but there is fraud. I mean, this is the real world. There is going to be fraud. If you can come up with a business application, let's be honest, what's it going to deal with? Paperwork, unstructured data, I mean, whatever. Automation, reading, understanding, all the things we cover. If you can come up with something that says, I can reduce fraud here by 15 to 20%, come in, sit down. Would you like a coffee? I've got some biscuits. Tell me more. I mean, there's a market for that.
Well, yeah, indeed. We were having a conversation last night with a vendor that ends up with a conversation about, what does efficiency mean? And efficiency effectively means that rather than having to do something new, I can squeeze more profitability out the things I already know how to do.
I can squeeze more value out. So in the example I'm giving, I can reduce fraud, right? Fraud costs me money. There's less fraud, whatever. But it's that level of specificity people are now looking for. So if we take medical billing again, I mean, yes, there's a lot of changes going on in that world. We won't get into that today, but there's a lot of, if anybody wants to get into that, by the way, give us a call. But there's a lot going on in that world. There's a lot of change going on. But at the end of the day, everybody in medical billing has a medical billing system. They wouldn't be in the business otherwise. They're looking for specific answers to specific problems. And if you can deliver those, you've got a business. If you're going in, selling somebody saying, hey, rip out what you've had for 20 years and replace it with this new shiny one, no way.
Now, hold that thought a little bit as well, because later on, we're going to come back to IT budgets and perhaps why specificity allows you to talk to line of businesses more easily, because they might have some money that IT doesn't. But let's hold that thought and come back to it. Then we come back to it and go, oh, isn't that how nice cyclical this whole conversation went? Let's go on to the second part of this post, Alan, which is about what it's called the inconvenient, unignorable paper reality. So
and people do not like this topic being brought up, but we did. Look, we've got, I would go as far as to say, incontrovertible evidence through data and surveys, which are validated. You can argue with our opinions as much as you want. There's real numbers. Look, paper hasn't gone away. Paper is somewhere around the sort of 50% mark when it comes to business processes. Just to keep the theme going, in medical billing, it's closer to sort of 70, 80%. And yet again, so we had this briefing yesterday, by the way, lovely people, so we're not picking on them, we won't say their name, but what was the first line in the first slide that he showed us? Everything's being digitized.
Yeah.
No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. Right. And the sooner our industry wakes up to that, the better.
Yeah.
Because that is their buyer's reality. And
well,
if
I
you
think the
can't,
difficulty is, as has been pointed out, particularly with technology startups, is that most of their customers are technology startups. Where they all worked before at technology startup. Is there any paper in those offices? No. Is that all offices? No. So it's very much a well, we see the world as how all of us and our friends and our colleagues all work, and therefore we can extrapolate, the valley out. And valley problems must be universal problems, and therefore, if they don't exist in the valley, they don't exist.
Yeah, and I mean Silicon Valley. Yeah, I mean, so I'll be back out there at the end of this month, so it's timely for this podcast. By the way, I've got gaps in my schedule, and you're in the Bay Area, and you want to grab a coffee or something, let me know. But the fact is, we spend a lot of time in Silicon Valley. We know it very well. This is our business. It is such an extreme outlier. And when I say Silicon Valley is an extreme outlier, I mean the actual businesses there and how they're run. They're such extreme outliers when you look at the rest of the world. When you walk through a government office, when you walk through, I never forget one of the blockchain project I worked on, right? Cutting edge technology, IoT, blockchain, walked into this food industry business. And honest, and I'm not exaggerating, by the way, there were piles of files, paper files. I honestly thought if that tipples over, somebody's going to get injured. I mean, it was floor to ceiling. That is the real world for many people. It might not be, that is extreme everywhere, but that number of 50%, nobody blinks except when you're in Silicon Valley. That's when they blink. No, it can't be.
Yeah, and I put this on screen. Up on screen for people who are watching, but if you're listening, a couple of stats from two MMI reports that we published, one in 2024 and one in 2025. The one in 2024 asked the question within the piece of research on AI and unstructured data management: what percentage of your organization's overall number of processes are currently paper-based? And 45% was a median response. So paper-based. That probably means not necessarily entirely paper, but a good chunk of paper in that process, 45%. And obviously, that's going to deviate across other industries. The following year, in the IDP report that I talked to Dan about a couple of months ago on this pod, one of the questions was, over the next 12 months, how do you expect the volume of paper-based documents to change? 48% of respondents, the largest group, says they will increase. So it's not the fact that there's still paper, but hey, paper's on the way, right? What the largest group of respondents are telling us last year is that use of paper in their organizations is going up, which was a bit of a shock to me, certainly. I mean, probably maybe less of a shock to Dan, who's the IDP expert, but in general, we knew there was a lot of paper processes, but the fact that the largest cohort was saying they were increasing was surprising.
Yeah, there's this belief that we've digitized everything, that paper's gone away, that it's going away at a fast pace is a myth. It's not true. Globally, it's nonsense.
So this is a topic which I know we're going to return to because, hey, it's core to what we do. And this is our podcast, and we're going to talk about the things which are of core importance to us. But in general, what we try to do is to give you a reflection of the world it is that we have the privilege to see as analysts. And as Alan said, what allows us to do these things is not having a crystal ball. It's that we are afforded the opportunity to have the conversations with businesses about how they work, have the opportunity to talk to technology vendors about how they work, and we get to synthesize them into research. That's Our crystal ball is talking to people. And if we've got a superpower, it's talking to people. So let's get on to...
If I can get a last little dig
of course.
This is where industry analysis can go horribly wrong. If the only people you're talking to are the people who are selling a technology product or investing in it, and you're reflecting those conversations, you're so far off the mark.
Yeah. Yeah.
far off.
Well, it means you'll only ever be able to sell your research to those people, which is a percentage, but it's not everybody.
Which is a perfectly fine business plan, but your analysis is just an echo of what they've said. That's not analysis. That's PR.
Cool. On to the second topic, beyond the walled gardens. I published something in November. So while we were talking about predictions and innovations awards, I wrote something a little bit about how business applications specifically are potentially looking to break out of their kind of traditional silos in with an aim of looking at, could they be the kind of ultimate orchestrators of agentic, of AI and agents. That's something that really came out of, and we talked about a little bit when we were here last time in October, when we were talking about the output of Dreamforce, for argument's sake. So in the autumn fall conference season, there was a lot of talk from CRM vendors, ERP vendors, ITSM vendors. You can probably guess who I'm talking about here, of saying, hey, our infrastructure is now so good, we don't need to stop where we've traditionally stopped inside our walled garden of IT service or CRM or ERP. It's now so good, we can just grab any kind of process, any type of line of business, and operate it, because universally our AI infrastructure is that kind of good. And I wrote a little bit about that then. So that's kind of, obviously that the thing will be in the show notes for that. I kind of returned to that topic again this year, because what I tend to do in January is to sit down and start doing the review of the data and of the world for the work intelligence market analysis that comes out each year, or will be out in, I guess by the time I finish and production and blah, 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 will be March, April time normally when that comes out. This will be the 4th year that we've done it. We've published a huge amount of data on this and trending data, but really the work intelligence market covers the whole gamut of AI and automation, from sort of traditional BPM through RPA, a lot of low code and no code automation, and process and task mining. And here a lot, we tend to talk about process and task mining a lot, to make sure that people remember it exists, because it's still having some trouble making people exist. So some of the things I was talking about in relation to that was those march of those biz app vendors into looking about covering a broader range of stuff. What traditional BPM vendors are now going and outfitting themselves with AI to make their applications a little bit easier to use and a little bit more AI compliance, if you like, in terms of product marketing, but also where AI native vendors, and to talk a little bit, refer back to that specificity that Alan talked about at the beginning, are starting to think themselves of less of, aha, we have an AI platform, welcome to our AI platform. I'm finding that's not a door opener any longer. The point when that was a door opener is long since past, and now we're actually having to really nail down what it is they do and how they contribute. The postscript to that, and I mentioned it in topic 1, was what in the broader landscape here is that IT budgets are increasing by very small amounts. It's anecdata. It's not data we've collected. Informally, this is more of our ear to the ground, listening to lots of organizations talk. They're saying, yeah, IT budgets are going up, and it's going up between 5 and 6%. Actually, most of the responses are closer to 5, but let's say between 5 and 6% is what that's going up. So mid-single digits. If you look at what Microsoft, which for many organizations is their core software supplier across the board, they come into it to negotiate an enterprise license, or the replacement for the enterprise agreements that's happening right now. That's covering everything from the productivity software to potentially ERP or CRM and everything. They're looking at trying to nail 30% increases on people's subscriptions. 5.5%, 30%. 5.5%, 30%. It's difficult to make those sums kind of add up. So the question, I think, for 2026, at least as I'm posing, and I'll just pass it over to you, Alan, and see what you think, is that, you've got an awful lot of organizations who are looking to jump into certainly brownfield areas, maybe some greenfield areas, for those organizations who've yet to dip their toe into AI. but the money doesn't seem to be there. How is this? How do you think this is likely to work through the year?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, it's twofold actually. But one, let's just get real about it. IT doesn't have budget, right? I mean, whether Microsoft pins it at 10%, 15%, 30%, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's your 5% gone.
Yeah.
And the reality is, IT budgets today are about maintenance, and actually they have been for quite some time. Right, they're about maintenance. This is what we pay to keep the system running. This is what we do. At the back end, okay, this hardware needs replacing. Whatever, at the front end, we put in patches. We upgrade for the latest version, whatever. And they've all put their prices up this year, right? So there's the money. So where do you get the money from? You get it from line of business, by going back to what we said in the first place, in the first section of this, by fixing a specific problem, right? That's not necessarily IT budget. I've got a problem, can you fix it? Yes, I can. Now, the fix is not entirely software. A lot of it is going to be services. So services and software tied together to fix a part of your business, they'll find budget for that, assuming it's worth it. Assuming it's worth it. But the truth is, this is a tough market. I mean, that we can't escape that. It's a really tough market. And that's why, going back to the specificity thing, I'm going as far as to say, really, unless somebody has a business application that is failing horribly, and they really just like, come on, we're done with this, we've got to find something better. That's your route to market. This is not, when you get beyond the AI hype, this is a really tough market. And without getting political, there's a lot going on in the world, and people are getting increasingly risk averse.
So they're getting risk averse. So that's something, I mean, we talked about it before on this, and I mentioned it in this thing, is that, there hasn't been a return to optimistic capital expenditure spending, what's referred to as capex. So going and raising money internally, a big chunk of money, and spending it on the thing, right? Where you've got a little bit of leeway is often in operational expenditure, what's referred to as OPEX, which is the stuff you use to pay the bills, keep the lights on, pay the people, stuff you need to get by. And sometimes there can be little bits of slack in that operational expenditure to do stuff. But the thing that we haven't talked about, and it's not our area, but it's something else to keep an eye on. The other big area that people are not skimping is on security software. So if you're looking at all of a sudden why Google or why ServiceNow very recently have just spent a huge amount of money beefing up the security side of their portfolio, it's because that's an area that organizations are not comfortable being penny wise with right now.
It's very good point.
So it's not just a case of that's fed into, even though it's not necessarily geopolitically driven, in a risk averse situation, one area you do not want to feel that you should, as a CIO, if you've got any leeway, is been seen to have a root cause in a loss of income or an outage that's a security failure for lack of buying whatever the shiniest security software is.
Well, there's that, but then we also have the craze for agentic AI and or AI in general, really. I mean, so you and I are actually working on a paper for a client at the moment, right? Which is, okay, you're AI ready. So where do we go from here? Well, let's be honest, a big chunk of that is security, right? Yeah. Because you can do an amazing demo with a bunch of agents, a bunch of data. It's fantastic. But hold on, that data was secured previously by access control. Sort of like, Matt can see this, Alan can see that, Alan can't see that, whatever. What about the bots? What about the agents? You're suddenly opening up a whole bunch of other possibilities.
Yeah, and I guess that's why, I covered it when I talked about the Microsoft Ignite towards the end of last year with, Microsoft started to treat, agents with the same intra ID and the same intra ID permissioning as humans. So in terms of permissioning, you're permissioning a profile, which could be applied to a human worker or could be applied to an agent worker. However, as we do know, in terms of where the biggest security risk, it's people and its ability to socially engineer ways into organizations. We know that agents have a potential susceptibility to prompt injection and those kind of attacks, which is really a type of socially engineered attack that's specific to the way in which agents interact with the world.
Yeah, and so people are starting to realize this is actually a big challenge. So by default, as market analysts, we can say, well, that's also a big opportunity for people. But let's be clear about this. This is not flipping a switch. This is a lot of work and analysis to get the security right. It's not simple stuff. So you're right, it's a big deal.
All of a sudden, I feel like we should be security analysts. It's not, but it's a very specific, very specialist area. We are joking. We do not have the skills to do it. What we do is we recognize where it is a hot button topic. We recognize when money is being spent there.
Just because we've got the platform for it. If you are interested in enterprise security, do check out our mates Adrian Sanabria and Javad Malik. Yep. They are awesome. They know their stuff inside out, and we bow to them. They're the experts.
And full disclosure, ex-colleagues of ours from a different
ex-colleagues, but that's why we know they're so good, because we worked directly with them. Yeah.
So on to the third topic for this month, for the first one of 2026, how not to lose the AI opportunity. Earlier on screen, if you were paying attention, you would have seen mention of information management, which, even though it's quite core to the underlying reason that we exist, we don't actually mention it by name that often, because it's perhaps deeply unfashionable. But Alan, you wrote in December a very much an information management specific blog post called "How Not to Lose the Opportunity That AI Offers Information Management," where straight up you're saying, hey, as information managers, we are not here to stop AI. Don't accuse us of that. We're not trying to stop AI. We are here to lay the tracks so it doesn't derail spectacularly at the first curve. And you leave sort of 3 lessons for information management professionals in how to deal with AI when it arrives in your organization. Is that a fair assessment of the purpose?
Yeah, it's a fair assessment. The context for it is, look, how many times do we hear garbage in, garbage out, right? And then there's the new spin on it, garbage in, gospel out, right? You know, garbage comes in, but people will trust what comes out regardless, you know. I mean, so listen, it's a fundamental, it's a core principle of AI that data's got to be accurate. Well, so surely then logically information management is at the core of this, and yet it's not. It's not. And I finished my 3-year board term on the board of AIM, which, if you're not familiar with AIM, do check it out, aiim.org. It's our industry organization, basically. It's our professional organization. The point is that AIM, us, everybody, is struggling with this conundrum. Why is information managers and information management in general still on the sidelines? We should be part of everything that's to do with AI, or everything in the enterprise, at least, that's to do with AI.
Well,
we should
into the lessons then. So the first of those lessons is infiltrate, don't confront. So about how to get into AI projects as an information manager.
Yeah, so again, just for context, after I published this, I did think, in a world that we're living in at the moment, guerrilla warfare maybe wasn't the right thing to go with here. But whatever.
That was in 2025, when the world was a very different place, Alan.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I mean, listen, if you're going around saying, "Oh, don't do that. That's not going to work. Stop that." Yeah, well, nobody's going to listen to you. I mean, it's just not going to happen, is it? But get involved, do the boring work. We say this so often. Information management is boring. I'm sorry, it is, right? It's critical, though. It's really important, right? One of my best friends is an auditor. I have zero interest in what the man does. That is the most boring thing on the planet as far as I'm concerned, auditing. But I understand it's really necessary. Information management much themselves. So embed yourself. Right, get involved in every initiative, and maybe this is the kicker: own the data sourcing. AI needs data. Where does it come from? It comes from you.
Yes.
You tell it which data is accurate, up to date, is being refreshed properly. You tell it what it can access and what it can't. You should be that data source, the owner of that data source.
And the result of that is that if you do it successfully, nobody will notice and other people will get the credit. That's the important thing also to remember there. No one will notice if the data is good. Everyone will notice if the data is bad.
The chances of the project actually being a success,
yes,
have gone through the roof.
Yes. Yes. So let's get into the second one again, which again is maybe 2025 coded. Weaponized risk and compliance. Now, risk and compliance we talked about a little bit last year, particularly when we talked about the awards, because one of our awards winners was very much around AI and compliance. But as you said, the AI team may be blissfully unaware or blissfully ignore governance, but GRC will still be an issue.
Well, it will, but this again comes to, look, we don't live in a vacuum, right? I mean, we've talked about Silicon Valley being a bit of an outlier in a bubble, but we live in the real world. We all live in the real world. And the real world at the moment is looking at the world of tech and saying, what's the laws and regulations don't apply to them, don't they? Oh, I see about that. I mean, there's a big broader public debate around tech at the moment, just running. Well, that filters down, right? And it's a fair point when I say the AI team may blissfully ignore governance. They may not be aware of it, frankly.
Yep.
Right? It's not their realm. It is yours as an information manager. And legal risk and compliance, they care about this stuff, but they don't understand AI. They need that sort of horse whisperer to go in there and say, yeah, look, this is a great project. It's really, really, you do understand this, that, and the other. What? Hello? Okay, need to get involved here, right? So yes, weaponize it. And we're not saying stop projects. We're saying do projects properly.
Yes. Enable their success rather than preventing them taking place. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
So let's look at the third one. Yeah. So champion the human in the loop by diagnosing the failure. So you're suggesting here AI will fail and it will hallucinate. It will exhibit bias.
Yeah, but this is the book. I've got blur on, so you can't see the books. But the book we published some years ago now, Cash and I. This was our sort of part of the thesis of it. Look, we're fans of AI. We understand how AI works. We support it. We think it's got great value. But the whole point of AI is it learns by failing, right? It fails and it fixes. It learns. Machine learning learns, right? How does it learn? By things going wrong. AI, by definition, will fail. It will exhibit biases. It cannot not exhibit biases. No data has no bias in it. Definitely unstructured data. All of it has bias. There will be hallucinations. They're not going to go away. That's fine. Okay. It's not fine if you don't do anything about it, though. So it's one thing to say, oh, it failed. It didn't work, right? Okay. Well, build in the mechanisms that you can help it to learn, that you can help it to fail less often, that you can help it to deal with biases, right? So, you can, the final line here is a bit hyperbole, I should say. But this is how you move from a cost center to a forensic expert. Who else is going to do this? Nobody. Nobody is going to do this. So when people say, oh, it's not working, if you can go in and say, well, that's because there's bias in this particular data set, we might want to clean it up, or we might want to access a different database, or we might want to update it, or whatever it is, you are likely the one who can point to the solution, if there is a solution. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that's three really useful points, and not just for information managers, for people in general who are not necessarily, building or deploying AI software, but own part of the inputs, regardless what those inputs are, whether they are formally information managers or not. If they have a familiarity with the data sets, data collections, or understand their nuances, they have a role to play in projects. I think that's kind of an important message and a nice one to finish on for our first podcast of 2026. So that's all we have time for. We've not arrived by that much this time. We're like just your 5 minutes. So next time there'll be 3 more topics and 31 minutes to discuss them in. I think Alan will be back on with me again next month. Anyway, thanks for joining us, Alan.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening or watching or downloading or however you're interacting with this, potentially even via an agent. We will see you hopefully again next month. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.